Hey friends, got some waves this morning. Here. Morning wind activity. I had something come through this morning, and this is pretty typical for when I spend time up here in Michigan, because this is a place where I have such an extended family lineage. It's probably the place where I have the most direct family lineage that I'm aware of, revolving around a place that I regularly visit. I know there are places in the United States, and I even, to some extent I'm aware of my history going back to England before the American Revolution. So I have an awareness of my family history that goes way back beyond any place that I'm really that familiar with. But I got a good 100 years here where I do actually know that people have been coming here. And I can actually kind of I can dig that up. I can see the evidence of that. I can both hear the stories, sometimes read the stories. So, I know in the history of the world, or even of humanity, that's a blink of an eye, but it feels like a place where I have some deep roots. And as a result of that, when I'm here, not consciously or intentionally, but my attention turns to my family very frequently. It's one of the things that I find myself reflecting on. One of the things that I come away from this place with sometimes some pretty significant lessons come through while I'm here, or in reflecting upon my time here. So, not surprising that something would show up for me around looking at my own kind of family lineage, and particularly certain lines of kind of inherited perspective, inherited energy. Because it's so. I want to frame this within the context of a spiritual practice where the purpose of reflection is to gain some kind of understanding with the ultimate intention or purpose of becoming liberated from our habits, from our programming, from anything we may have inherited that's good or bad, if it is keeping us, if it has become a limitation for us. My intention is to try and dissolve that. So, because I think it's important to understand, why are we even looking at our family issues, right? It's entirely possible to just kind of get obsessed with your own history, your own kind of drama, and spend a lot of time analyzing that. But that doesn't really take us forward, right? That's not gonna liberate us. So we want to really set the intention, or at least I do. I try to do this consciously. I want to set the intention that I'm in this process and I'm going through this examination to the extent that I'm going through an examination. A lot of times it's just feeling an impulse hit me and feel it emotionally. But I'm going through this whole process in order to free myself. That's the purpose. Because that also changes the actual sort of like rubber meets road practice of this. So for example, if something comes up for me around something maybe I feel like I've inherited from a family member, a particular disposition, a self-worth issue, a kind of identity that has become somehow limiting for me, which I've spoken about this in my previous posts, and I feel like I'm still teasing out some of the meaning here, but when those things show up, it's just really important to acknowledge that what I'm seeing, I'm seeing it from my limited perspective in this lineage. I'm seeing it from the point at which I arrived or entered the flow, and I've been flowing for 46 some years. And at some point, I'll stop flowing and other people will continue the flow. But while I'm here, I'm seeing what I've engaged with most directly. That I see my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles and siblings and cousins, and the people that are around me that I actually have contact with are the ones that have imprinted upon me, that continue to imprint upon me, and that upon whom I'm also having an effect. I have a daughter now. I know I'm having a ginormous effect every time I open my mouth, every time I raise my voice, every time I remain gentle in a difficult circumstance. Everything is having an effect, forming another being's perception of life. And I think so. What I've kind of been sitting with, or what's been coming to me, is a sense of a sense of gentleness, or a sense of love, because I see things in myself sometimes where I'm unable to love myself in certain ways, let's say, or I'm not yet skilled at loving myself in certain ways. So I'll judge myself, let's say, or diminish myself. Well, that comes from somewhere. And even if I don't have events I can point to and be like, that's what happened to me, and so that's how I got this way, which I think is pretty rare that a human being can point to individual events like that and say, this is where this entire complex comes from. It's certainly possible, and definitely with people who have significant kind of discrete traumatic events. I've spoken to enough people to know that a single event can have a massive effect, and sometimes we can kind of isolate it down to that. But I think much more often we can't point our finger at a single event. We've just been swimming in water that feels like this forever a lot of times. The things that I picked up from my mom and from my dad, and then sort of extending out, shading into their parents and their siblings, all the kind of family influences that go into a human being. When I look at that, it's like a fish tank that I've been swimming in, or at least that I swam in for a good portion of my life. So it's normalized certain types of behavior, certain types of self-perception, and I think think that's why what's showing up for me now is a sense of just like a softness, like a longing or an intention to be gentle, to give love. Because when I see like there's something that happens, like they say that hurt people, or abused people often become abusers. I think that is true on a subtle enough level that we might not even call it abuse anymore. But if we have a certain imprint of lack of self-worth, let's say, we're gonna not just experience that, we're also gonna experience some sort of compensating mechanism that makes us able to cope with that feeling. And that compensating mechanism is likely to not only be directed inward at us, like a kind of I don't know, self-promoting impulse, but it's also likely to be directed outwards. So we're gonna direct those impulses out and then feel and then have an effect on other people, whether it's our family or not. But I think within a family, I've seen myself sort of go into a compensatory behavior directed outwards, and it has an effect on someone, and immediately I go, oh wow, I just like triggered someone, or I just had a real impact on someone without even intending to, completely unconsciously probably. At least the point of origin of that impulse was just something I wasn't aware of. It was performing a function. It wasn't unintentional. It was just not consciously intentional. But when I watched that ricochet off a family member, off someone, a loved one, and I watched their response, all of a sudden it humanizes my own complex, my own pain, my own issue, my own self-worth stuff. Becomes something that I am not defending against anymore, because now it's not in me, it's out. I'm watching it out there, and I go, oh wow, ouch, I just hurt someone. And then I realize, oh wow, I do that to myself all the time. And if it's a family member, it's like, oh wow, maybe this is just what we've been doing to ourselves for a long time. Maybe we've been amplifying these problematic perceptions, self-perceptions or impulses or whatever, within our family for a while. And so there's just a gentleness and a love that come in, and they really kind of, I think that's what's showing up for me right now, is like a desire to come from that place, because it gives me a chance to grow beyond that. It gives me a chance to let go of the thing in me that's limiting me, and also not to transmit it to the next generation, and maybe even to help the older generation heal. Maybe even to pay it back and forward at the same time, if we can really do the work. So that's what's showing up for me today, people. Slight waves on the surface. Apt metaphor. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.